This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Hey, what's up, and welcome to Q&A, the show where I take your questions and answer them here in video format. Thank you guys for asking all these questions. Let's get into it with the first question from Only One Zay, which is less of a question and more of a recommendation. And you know what? I like this. You know, something y'all got to give me. I answer these questions every week and I don't mind it. But you know what? I wouldn't mind like a food recommendation, you know, maybe a drink recommendation. What kind of cocktails y'all out here drinking? Like, what y'all like? You know, y'all don't just gotta, well, no, ask me Brown's questions when I ask for Brown's questions. But you know, I wouldn't mind a drink recommendation in there, you know. I like to know things, like, you know, throw that in there. So appreciate getting a little bit of a recommendation here. Only One Zay says, if you get a chance, check out Watson's latest podcast when him and his quarterback coach talk about his own expectations he talked about in 2020 season. It would make a fire video. I would love to talk about that. I got to go find a clip on that. Check that out, because I do think what is fascinating about this offseason with Deshaun Watson is it feels like he understands like what the assignment is with this team better than he's had the last 3 years. And it seems like he is like fully coming out and being like, hey man, I might not put up crazy numbers, but that's because that's not what I'm asked to do. So it's going to be interesting to see what that podcast has to say. Next question comes from the real Brother Brown. Appreciate the real Brother Brown being the one asking me this question, not the fake one. Can the Browns handle early season success and not succumb to the hype train that might follow after a positive start? Nah, I'm not worried about that anymore about this team. This team is not 22, 25 years old anymore. They're not a young team. You look at this team, they're older, right? They've had good starts before. They've had exciting starts that didn't end in exciting finishes. You know, these guys have been through it a little bit, right? Myles Garrett is getting up there closer to 30. Most of your core players are getting up there closer to 30. And what that does mean is that those guys are more experienced. Those guys aren't going to be losing their mind over their first 3-game win streak or their first road win or whatever it is. This is a pretty experienced bunch of players, you know, that's looking to achieve more than just regular season success. So I don't think regular season success is where they're going to get carried away with themselves. They've done those things before. Now it's about postseason success. So yeah, I think this team is past that point. At least I hope they are. And I think they proved that last year because they had a good start last year. They didn't let that get carried away. They finished strong. And you can even argue they finished stronger than they did. So yeah, I would say they've been through the ringer. They've learned their lessons. They've gotten better. Next question from Gagan says, which player in their prime would you rather have on today's Browns team, given what you want to change offensively? Duke Johnson or Josh Gordon? I know what you're trying to set up here, man. I really do, G. I know what you're trying to set up here. I don't care who at running back. I'm getting Josh Gordon. What do you mean? Prime Josh Gordon? You throw prime Josh Gordon on this roster? Yes. Yes. There's only one correct answer, and that one correct answer is whatever answer gives you Josh Gordon, like prime Josh Gordon on your roster. That is the only correct answer available. I'm sorry. I know what you're trying to get at. Like, I want another Browns running back with a good yards per carry number, but I only want that so bad. You know what I want more than a Browns running back outside of Nick Chubb that can get 5 yards per carry? A wide receiver who can carry the football team on offense. Yeah, I'm definitely 1,000% with no hesitation always going to take Josh Gordon in that situation. It ain't nothing personal, no damn Duke Johnson. But I don't know who is out here like, nah, I'd rather have Duke. If you are somebody who'd rather have Duke Johnson in that scenario, please explain the logic to me. You know, I would love to know what kind of reasoning would be behind it. And this ain't about no locker room antic stuff. So don't make it about, oh, well, you know, Duke's a better locker room guy. Nah. Explain it to me in football. What would make anybody want to get Josh Gordon? Duke Johnson over Josh Gordon. Again, no disrespect to the Duke. Duke is a Cleveland legend. But Josh is a myth. He's a mythical being. It's just different. But the next question comes from Barrick, who says, you always say the Steelers are not a good team based on their quarterback play. However, that is the one facet of the game where they look like they just get average quarterback play from a room with everything else the same. We can all agree they have been a bottom 5 quarterback room for the last 4 years, yet second best overall in the division and second best division record during that time period. I'm going to push back on that because they might have the second best overall division record, but like at no point over the last couple of years has anybody thought Pittsburgh was the second best team in the AFC North. Period. Full stop. Not going to happen, right? Like the only reason they finished stronger than some of these teams is because either Baltimore had crazy injuries that one year or Cleveland had a bunch of injuries. Like there's no point where Pittsburgh was not firmly the third best team in the AFC North. They were never really the second best team. Now, as far as them upgrading their quarterback play, and they might upgrade their quarterback play from Kenny Pickett, I don't think it's as simple as Russell Wilson has a higher overall than Kenny Pickett. Like, I think there's a lot of other things that go into having Russ play quarterback for you that could create more problems than it solves. Right? Russ holds the ball a lot. Russ takes a ton of sacks. So you're going to be behind the sticks more often with Russell Wilson, which means you're going to run the ball less with Russell Wilson, which means you're going to be playing away from your strength, which means you're going to get more 3 and outs with Russell Wilson. Yeah, there will be times where Russell Wilson puts up better numbers than Kenny Pickett. For sure, he will have better games. But is he operating in a way that's compatible with winning with what you have on the roster? I don't know if that's necessarily the case. Also, I think we tend to overrate how much a quarterback upgrade is when your quarterback goes from stinking a lot to stinking a little. Like, it really ain't that different having Desmond Ridder than having like current Derek Carr. Those two things aren't. You can compete at the same level with Desmond Ridder that you can with Derek Carr, right? And I'm talking about right now Derek Carr, not past Derek Carr. It don't really change much, right? Difference in quarterback play matters when you're going from bad to good or great quarterback play. But when you're going from terrible quarterback play to quarterback play, it makes not that much of a difference because you still have to overcome the quarterback position to win. So I think a lot of people are making the mistake of overrating the value of going from a horrible quarterback to a bad quarterback in Russ. But I don't think that matters as much as people want it to. And I think it's been proven because Russ had all them numbers last year. They still couldn't make the playoffs with the roster that they had around him in Denver, which most people considered to be Super Bowl worthy when he got traded there. So that's why I'm not high on the Steelers and why their quarterback situation doesn't move me. One, I'm just not that high on Justin Fields. I don't think he's that different from Kenny Pickett. And I do think Russ is a better quarterback than Kenny Pickett, but I think there are some things that Russ brings to the table that aren't necessarily positive things. And I'm not the only one who thinks this, right? The Seattle Seahawks paid Russ a gobble of money to not play for him anymore. And the Denver Broncos paid Russ a ton of money to not play for him anymore. If people thought Russ was helpful to winning football games, Russ would not be being paid like $100 million to not play for 2 teams. That's just the cold hard truth of it. So yeah, I think people are overrating how much it means to go from from terrible quarterback play to bad quarterback play. I don't think it matters that much. And I don't think it changes how many games you're going to win or changes what kind of team you're going to be. I think they're going to be the same team that they've always been, which is a 9-win team with a good defense. And once Russ gets moved out of there, they're going to run the ball more. Big Cardi says, I have the answers to knowing when Chubb is back. Once he posts a video of him squatting 475. Plus, that's light work for what he usually squats, but he will be very encouraging sign. Besides to respond to your video, the Browns players you may be worried about. I was a Cedric Tillman fan once we drafted him. I did my scouting, and I have faith that he'll show up and be a great role player. You open the door, talks about a future role, being on a bigger role, wide receiver comp for him, and you think his ceiling is T. Higgins. It's a bit more ambitious than I would go with him. I understand he had issues being in the wrong place last year. I don't see that being a hard fix if he takes his career seriously. Plus, Deshaun will ball this year. I'm stamping it. Amari, David, Jerry, Chubb, Moore. All we need, good health and a top 10 offense. Easier said than done for sure. As far as the Nick Chubb thing goes, I have heard that he is squatting again. Take that for what it's worth. But I have heard that he is squatting again. And you'll find out where I heard it in a couple of days. But I've heard he's squatting again. So I am optimistic about where Nick Chubb is. I don't know how much he's squatting, but I've heard he's squatting again. So very encouraging sign for Nick Chubb, especially given the nature of the type of knee injury he have, right? Like that's one where the squatting was going to be probably one of the last steps. And if he's working on that, it tells you he's pretty far along. We already know he's running. We already saw him on the treadmill. We saw him running before. I think things are looking good for Nick Chubb here. I think they don't want to be public about it because they don't want to get everybody's hopes up. But, I think Nick Chubb's in a good place with his rehab. Older guy says, with talks about going to an 18-game season, would it be more beneficial for players' health? What would be more beneficial for players' health? An extra bye week or an expanded roster? How many? I don't see how an expanded roster makes other players more healthy, because just because you can have more players on a roster doesn't mean that teams are going to play more players, right? Like, those players who are going to make the roster, like if they expand it to 63, those 10 extra players, like 3 of them ain't going to dress and everybody else going to be special teams, right? So I don't think it's going to affect anything about, like, if you expand the roster, anything about the number of targets that the top players or the best players on the team, the players who are going to play a lot, they're going to see the same amount of stuff just for 18 games. The extra bye week would be nice, just because, like, that's just a long ass season. So I would say probably the extra bye week, but there's nothing healthy about playing 18 NFL. There's nothing healthy about playing 17 NFL games. If I'm being, like, honest with you, like, I think the NFLPA should push for both if they're going to go for 18 games. At the end of the day, they're compromises because the NFLPA should have never been pushed to 17 games, but they've been pushed to 17 games. Being pushed to 18 games is a loss. So if they compromise and they get an extra bye week and expanded roster, at least they can get more players in the league and an extra bye week. I do think that this is going to destroy the spring football leagues, but apparently I'm the only one who cares about that. So that is what that is. But yeah, get the extra bye week, get the expanded roster if they're offering it, because at least you can do more, have more players be in the NFL. But none of those, like both of those things ain't going to help player safety. Like the extra bye week is not going to help player safety. Honestly, it just extends the season for an extra week. If we really being honest about like what the extra bye week, you're already making it 18 weeks. So you extend another week, which means there's another week of practice, there's another week of camp. This thing dips further and further along. So even the extra bye week doesn't really have health benefits for like the individual player. Maybe for the team, it helps them because they can get healthier. But for individual players, The extra bye week ain't really gonna do nothing for him. And nor is the expanded roster. But if you're the NFLPA, you might as well get both because they going to 18 games. You might as well leave here with something. Cade says, I'd like to know what you think of the tight end situation. Comfortable with less depth at the position maybe means more 11 personnel. Oh, they're definitely running more. They paid 3 wide receivers, right? They traded a 2nd round pick for Elijah Moore. They traded a 5th and a 6th round. Well, they traded up back from the 2nd round for Elijah Moore. Let me phrase that right. They traded a 5th and a 6th round pick and paid $17 million for Jerry Jeudy, and they're currently paying $20 million, and they might give Amari Cooper an extension. They're gonna run a lot of 11 personnel. So that the money tells you that, or at least the resources tell you that, where they put resources into this team. So yeah, they're gonna run a lot of 11 personnel for sure. And that's why they're not that worried about tight end. Jaden Browner says, who's more likely to get an extension first, JOK or Coop? Coop. They can't wait on this Coop extension because Coop plays wide receiver. The money's getting ridiculous, right? And the more money the top end gets, the more money the guy below the top end gets, and the more money the guy below the top end guy gets, right? So it constantly climbs up. And so if Justin Jefferson is getting $35 million, and then somebody below him is getting $27 million, that means Nico Collins with one 1,000-yard season can get $24 million, which means where the hell do you put Amari Cooper in that? Right? And if that continues to climb up, which it looks like it's going to do, then you're going to be at the point where it's like, hey, Amari Cooper costs 30, and that's just too much, right? So yeah, you want to get this Coop thing done as soon as possible if you plan to extend him, because the more you wait, the bigger the price is. JOK plays linebacker. There's no gold rush at linebacker right now. You can wait on that one. You can sign him in the middle of the season. That price ain't going to change for JOK. Ain't going to be that much. We saw like Pat Queen sign for like $8 million or something like that. Well, not $8 million, but like $10 million or something like that. The numbers ain't that crazy. Tyler says, is Thrash going to be catching punts? No. But is that all the questions? Yes, that is all the questions. I appreciate you guys for asking all those. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.